Hi guys, back again. What is this weapon? Well, you can kind of see what it is. It's clearly a Thompson submachine gun of some kind. Those of you who know the Thompson probably already spotted what type, or what loose type. The later type, or this is an M1. Cocking handle on the side, no drum magazine capability, no vertical foregrip, although some of the 28s don't have it either. So this is classic later war American simplified form of the Thompson. But what we're really here for, I think, is this very interesting tube on the front of the gun. Because this is a suppressed or silenced or special, as the term was often used. This is what, skipping ahead slightly, the Mark II S Sten, the S stands for special, not silenced or suppressed. Anyway. The mention of the Sten is, well, the Sten is relevant to this story, but there's a lot of confusion around these suppressed Thompsons and when they started, when they were made, what for. I'm not sure I'll be able to clear all of it up, but I can shed some light on this particular one. And speaking of the Sten, this is adapted from a Sten pattern silencer. So it's the 1.5 inch diameter tube. It's the same length as well as the Sten suppressor. It's blued steel. So although this is a slightly rough and ready prototype, effectively, the suppressor body is high quality because it's from the production line, essentially. Same for the end cap there. That slotted end cap, that's straight off the Mark II S Sten as well. But it is different. So I'm not sure what... I'm hoping to be able to show you something of the inside of this through the magic of technology. If we can't do that, well, we'll show you a drawing of the Mark II S Sten silencer because it's very, very similar, and I will explain to you the differences either way. So in here is a row of the same pattern of baffles that are in the Sten Mark II S, which are domed with a hole through the middle, obviously. The bullet has to go through. And then they have sides to them, so sort of 1/2 inch sides to separate them from each other. So you end up with a dished shape repeating down the bore of this tube, as it were. Fewer of those in here than in the Sten. There are only 15 baffles, and none of them are cut away. The Sten baffles are literally cut in half at the front, so that the front half is cut away. The ring, the sides are still there. 1/2 of the face of the baffle is there, again, with the hole, but the other half is cut away, giving more volume, essentially, changing the signature, presumably, of the sound. Well, this just has the solid ones, 15 of them. There's a 1/2 inch felt pad in the muzzle here. So we get different from the interior of the Mark II S silencer as well, slightly. And the big difference at the back, because we have the Thompson barrel cut down, so from 12 down to just over 10 inches. So removing that front sight protrusion, as it were, with the front sight blade atop it. That's been cut off back 2 inches back. And then this steel block has been machined up with the same taper as the outside of the Thompson barrel, and it's sleeved over that. These two screws here secure the rear baffle in place. So then they're not affixing this to the barrel of the gun, as far as I can tell. The only thing holding the suppressor onto the gun is this screw here, which is a little alarming, but I guess it's good enough to do the job. As long as you don't get any baffle strikes where the bullet hits the baffles and pushes the silencer off the gun, in which case that one screw might not be enough. So that's going, in theory, through the casing of the silencer into this block, and then through that and into the outside of this barrel, I believe, is how it's secured. I'd like to get this x-rayed to double check that, but there isn't much else going on than that. Seems a bit sort of jerry-rigged, really, but that's how it is. The barrel's not ported, so there are no holes drilled in the barrel as there are in the Sten and other integral suppressed designs. This is maybe questionably integrally suppressed. It's integral in the sense that without it, you haven't got a very functional Tommy gun. But it doesn't come all the way back here and attach at the back. and it certainly isn't ported to reduce the velocity of the bullets. You don't need to reduce the velocity of these bullets. These are 45 ACP. They're coming out at subsonic velocity anyway. Slightly lower velocity out of the barrel because the first 2 inches are missing. Now, of course, to fit these 2 cylinders onto the gun, they've also had to relieve the wood, cut away the wood 2 steps down. They've left the handguard in place. In fact, this handguard is tightened down, tightened on, helping to keep the suppressor from wobbling. If you back off this screw at all, as we attempted to do to get inside this, aborted the process because it's too tight, the suppressor becomes a little bit loose. So this is not the best work ever. There are also 2 little holes. Little hole there, little hole there. Those are gas bleed-off holes. So the initial expansion chamber here around, so the muzzle, the gases come into here and expand into this chamber inside here that you can't see, and then the bullet passes down here, the gases come in behind and expand into the spaces between the baffles. So for whatever reason, they've decided that gas escape holes are necessary left and right there. Maybe there was too much immediate build-up of pressure causing it to come off, but then why not attach it better to the gun? I don't know. So this sort of has that Sten lineage. Now there's some confusion in the literature here about the origins. So some researchers say this is for the Commandos, some say it's for SOE. They mostly agree that it was it rose in 1942. The evidence we have is that this emerges in 1944, not in 1942. I think the explanation for this confusion is that they are talking about, and I don't have access to the records they had access to. We don't have them here for some reason. We have some about this, not about the earlier one. I think the reason is we're looking at 2 different Thompsons with silencers. There's a 1928 model, top cocking, various different other features, but it's what was available at the time, with not a Sten pattern or Sten derived silencer. In fact, it's mentioned there is a mention of Sten carbine with American pattern suppressor. So maybe that, I haven't got my hands on the one that survives. That's at Imperial War Museum, of what I think is the 1942 pattern. Different suppressor, different model of gun, has a front sight on it. I'd like to see it one day and perhaps try and get to the bottom of this one. We do know that both of them would have been designed by the Armament Design Department of the War Office, based in Hertfordshire. They're the design authority for anything experimental like this, and made at Enfield, or modified at Enfield. The suppressor would have been made at Enfield, although there is a reference to silencers for the Thompson being made by J. Armstrong and Co. Again, I suspect that refers to the pattern of suppressor on the IWM example, the Imperial War Museum example, not to this. This is a straightforward adaptation of a Sten suppressor made at Enfield, adapted at Enfield, put together at Enfield, and then laid up in the pattern room at some point. Now, supposedly this 1942 pattern silenced Thompson, not this, I believe, was up against the silenced Sten prototype in 1942, and they were testing it out to 300 yards or something in the usual way, burst, semi-auto, accuracy, reliability, and it was found to be too cumbersome, and that's how we get the Mark IIs. I can't really speak to that. All I can say, based on the records that we have access to, is that this is 2 years later. And I believe ours is one of 2 M1A1s ordered converted on the 16th of February 1944. We don't know when they were actually done, but it would have been fairly soon after that, presumably. And interestingly, the idea by this time, by 1944, and there's no reference back to these earlier Stens, by the way, other than the 1928 pattern existing. The idea by this point seems to have been convertible guns. So in 42, it would have been about a unified suppressor gun combination that stays together. By this point, the idea they've been ordered to investigate is how easy and cheap, effectively, or quick, is it to adapt either this or an M3 carbine, they call it, but they mean the grease gun, to suppressed operation. Bearing in mind, by this point, the American guide lamp manufactured suppressed grease gun M3s were yet to appear. So by 44, it seems like the idea is, can we adapt either an M3 or a Thompson, which is better basically, with a silencer that can then be detached, or they can somehow be readily converted back to normal operation. Not clear why they want this, but that's what they say. So the actual wording for that is they want to make a standard weapon that can be easily converted to a special weapon, i.e. suppressed, at will, implying by the user, so detachable suppressor, and then easily changed back again. So that there seems to be something different. So there is an undated report that I thought perhaps could be from this 1942 phase of this whole development, but I'm not sure, I'm really not sure. It's sort of going to first principles of, is this quieter than a silent Sten, implying that silent Sten is now a thing, which would suggest 1944. The gun mentioned in it by serial number is the 1928 model over at the Imperial War Museum, for what that's worth. And this was, so the result of this, they fired 80 rounds, bursts and single shots, and the only result was the noise of the gun compared favourably with that of the silent Sten. To which somebody commented, this was G.F. Wallace making this report. Somebody I can't make out their name, responded, "Mr. Wallace, was it the same or better?" And the response in pencil below that in pencil was, "I should say that the total noise was the same as the Sten, but the mechanical noise seemed greater." And this refers to something that people notice, especially on internet videos, where the report of the firearm is muted by or deprecated by the mic, and what you hear is the action clattering, and you go, "Oh, it's incredible, it's completely silent." Not really the case. Nearly everything makes a pop at the muzzle and a clatter at the back. But it's interesting that they're commenting on that, the loud noise of the action being greater with the Thompson. There was a lightened bolt on the Mark IIS and the ported barrel, so I can see how that might be the case. Anyway, little tidbit there. Doesn't really help us with this narrative as to what's going on in 42, what's going on in 1944. There is a reference to a report, 15th of December 43, which seems to pertain to this, but we don't have the report surviving, unfortunately, so I can't even be sure of that. But in theory, the first mention of this pattern with the Sten silencer would be December 43, meaning this was definitely put together in 44. But the clincher really for this being 1944 dated is a memo, 29th February 1944, G.F. Wallace again. By the way, G.F. Wallace, you might recognise the name at home, wrote the book Guns of the RAF after he retired. So he remained involved in guns after the war. And he requests in February 44, so the ball's maybe been rolling in December 43, but it's only in 44, February, he requests conversion of Sten silencer and trial of a Sten silencer for use on a Thompson carbine in accordance with attached sketch, and then the sketch isn't there. So that's unfortunate. It'd be nice to be able to show you that. We can't. Then in April 44, we get the only proper trial of, the only detailed trial that we have records of. And this is to check for accuracy, again, versus the M3 carbine, and any baffle strikes. So just to make sure that the bullets aren't clipping the baffles on the way out. Alignment of everything is critical on a suppressed weapon. So this was this very silenced M1. So we do have this gun on trial in April 1944, which is really nice. Up against a 1928 A1 silenced gun, not the one from the Imperial War Museum, another one that's since been lost. And an M3 carbine, if anyone happens across it, it's marked 1 IMP. Not sure why, but it was. And then as a control, an ordinary Savage-made, as they mostly were, 1928 A1 Thompson. So standard Commando Home Guard Thompson as a control gun. 10-round single-shot group size at 30 yards was tested. They all produced group sizes between 5 and 9 inches at 30 yards, semi-auto, no baffle strikes. Nothing terribly exciting to report from that trial. You'd expect them all to perform that well, or better, really. And then 12th of June 1944, it is confirmed that no further action is required with this, and they're proceeding instead with the M3 option. It's possible, likely even, that then leads to acquisition of the OSS pattern M3 grease gun from the States, or it could be could be unrelated and that's a separate initiative. I really can't say for sure. But it would make sense to me that if, for whatever reason, we decide to supplement or for a different purpose, acquire M3 grease guns with suppressors, or that we will adapt with suppressors, remember that was the original intent, that requirement might morph into, we're just going to buy them en masse from OSS because they've developed them wholesale with their own type of suppressor. And we know that those were dropped to partisans, resistance fighters in the later part of the war. So maybe that was the intent of this. Maybe it was all your eggs in one basket thing of, yes, we have the Mark IIs in 9mm. It's very good. It's very quiet. But we want another option to be able to get hold of suppressed weapons for whatever reason. SOE, Commandos, maybe. We don't really know the ultimate purpose of this. But this went nowhere. There is a claim that some of what would have been the 1942 version made it into the field with the Commandos. I can't substantiate that. I have no evidence of that. And in any case, this is too late for that to be the case. They had their Mark IIs. They had other options by then. We can't directly compare, and the results aren't good enough to say whether this was any better than a Mark IIs Sten, but I'd be surprised. That ported barrel, okay, you don't need the ported barrel with this, but the ported barrel combined with the lightened bolt, at the very least, the Mark IIs does everything this does in a lighter package. This thing is so heavy. This is over 12 pounds in weight with this suppressor attached. It's 40.6 inches long. So the nice short, relatively short length of the Thompson is out the window, as it was with the Sten as well. But at least the Sten, you can take the buttstock off and pack it. This M1 Thompson, you can't take the buttstock off. So you are stuck with this. And the whole idea of converting them back and forth, suppressor on, suppressor off, clearly that was never perfected, or if it was, we don't have any evidence of it. So another bit of a side story for you there, but there's something extremely cool about a suppressed Thompson gun. They're very rare. A few people have done it in later times as a sort of experiment or for fun. But as far as I know, there are only 2 period suppressed Thompsons, one at the Imperial War Museum and this one here in front of me. Thanks very much for watching, guys. We really do appreciate it. In fact, we appreciate even more the fact that you have pushed us over 300,000 subscribers, which is fantastic. Can't thank you all enough for that. If you haven't already, please do check out our website, our social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now expanding our social media horizons. We are now on TikTok. Our TikTok handle will appear somewhere here, depending on whether they want to troll me or not and put it somewhere else. But you'll be able to check out, well, I imagine a series of short videos of some sort. But we're quite excited to be expanding onto TikTok as well as all of the other platforms. Events-wise, we do have coming up the Summer Joust, which is taking place over the summer bank holiday. That's definitely worth a look, and should be some nice weather as well, although I've probably tempted fate by saying that. But whatever happens, please do join us again here next week.